Okay, so I'm really excited about this. Today we will be making a car jump the Tower Bridge in London. And I was thinking, what car is better for jumping the Tower Bridge? A British Mini Cooper produced in America. So what we will do is we will launch the car over here. We'll start it. We will do some wheel spin. We will go on the way to the bridge. We'll jump the bridge and then get to a stop over on this side. We should be able to do this in around, I don't know, 20 minutes. Let's see how it goes. So the first thing you will need is, of course, a car. So I'll be using a Mini Cooper that I downloaded off of 3dsky.org. You can use any of the included cars with launch control or transportation add-on or whatever you want. Most car models will work. Some will need some adjustment before, but I will go over that in another video, how to prepare them for launch control. So launch control is the new car animation add-on that I always wish I had. Inside it has all the tools you will need when animating cars in Blender. That means it's super focused on workflow and streamlining the process and save you a lot of time. Now I'm using the add-on for everything that has to do with cars inside Blender. If you're a beginner, I'll be dropping a video soon about the basics of car animation and launch control. But hey, enough about that. Let's jump back into the file. So let's copy this guy into our Blender scene or into our Tower Bridge scene. And he appears here. Let's put him where we want to start from. We want to start over here. Let's open the end panel just to be able to see launch control. And let's put him, I don't know, somewhere here. Maybe a little bit further back here. Let's try that. Okay, awesome. So right now you can see he's floating. That's very much on purpose. Please do not make him stick to the road yet. Because when you're rigging a car, the car has to be on the world grid. So you can see this grid here. Maybe you can't, but I mean, YouTube compression. That means if it's on the grid, you can rig it. If it's not on the grid, you cannot rig it. So just make sure it's there. Let's remove some of the stuff here in the background. All this geometry is just wasting performance. So you can always add that later back in when we're doing the final render. So let's click rig vehicle and see what happens. Here we go. Here is the rigged car. So we can just check now if everything's working. Let's play back and see the car is turning. We have the brake discs and the brake calipers, and they are following and the wheels are spinning. So that looks all good. One thing you just need to check is if your wheels are wobbling. So sometimes if the model you have been importing had the wheels tilted just a little bit, you get this very disgusting wheel wobble. So if that's the case, just remove the rig, remove the car from this file, go back into your original file and just make sure that they are straight. If you do want some kind of tilt on the wheels, there's an option for doing that inside launch control, but that's too much to go over right now. So the first thing we want to do is to fix the ground detection, because right now the ground detection is calculated from this plane that was imported with or just added when you rig a car with the launch control. Let's remove it just with X and then find the stuff that we want to be the new ground detection. So let's select all these road meshes and whatever else you want to be ground detection and just throw that into the ground detection group. So you can either move it or you can link it into this. Okay, there we go. So now the car jumped back onto the road, which looks nice. And you can see how it's sticking to the road. It doesn't matter if you get it 100% correct, the car would still stick to the road even if the line is a bit above or below the road. So let's first just build out our little animation here, a little path where we want the car to go. And you can see when I remove this turn, then a message appeared. So let's just flip around and see what it says. Length of driving path changed. Please click update driving path. So driving path is this object here. You can find it in the outliner, driving path. And because the length changed, the internal calculations do not match anymore. And it also messed up all your animations that you might have made. To fix this, you have to click the update driving path and it will recalculate everything depending on the new length of the path. But right now we will change the path a lot. So let's just change it and then in the end, update the path. The way we want to change it is we want to put some keyframes or some control points for the curve. And I guess we should start on the left side. Okay, we are starting on the left side. That's good because we're British, aren't we? So I'm using the face project to snap these control points to the road just by holding control. And let's scale this up so we don't have any disgusting, sharp turns. And let's put the next point right here in the center of the road just before we get onto the bridge. Let's scale this down because this one I do want to make a little bit of a snap because I think that will look cool when the car is suddenly going from flat to just 20 degrees. And I don't know. Let's see how that's going to look. And Then let's put this in the center. Now let's use one of the cool features of launch control to make this jump. So first let's put the angle. So we will set the angle to be the same angle as the bridge. So let's leave it like this and then jump into the manual gearbox. Almost at the very bottom, you see airborne. And in here, you can create points automatically, just kind of does the jump thing for you. So what we need is a point on the curve and the speed of the car. So I imagine that the car would be going around 100 kilometers per hour here. So let's punch in 100. And then let's click vehicle jump. And there we go. So this drew a path for us of how the car would more or less jump in real life. What I like to do is just adjust this a little bit because I find it's better if you make this point flat instead and then extend the end because it's kind of, I found that works better. And another thing I like to do is just extend the back here. Let's say the car will be going until, I don't know, until here, and then it will stop. What I like to do with this point is just make an automatic handle, then scale it to 0 like the other one, just to ease kind of the landing because that makes it look a little bit better. These are the things you can also fiddle with yourself to make it like you want it. That's cool. Now we have the base animation. So this is what we want to happen in the animation. From here, let's just calculate the driving path length. So let's click the update driving path button and you can see everything's back to normal now. So what we want to do now is animate the speed or the movement of the car. So we won't do any kind of small details, but rough out how fast it would be going at different points in time. So let's start by, actually, I think it would be cool if we start with a little bit of wheel spin. So let's start by going into pose mode here on the rig and then clicking the wheel, which is the movement of the car. Let's put a keyframe and move, I don't know, 10 frames forwards and then just move it a little bit, something like that. So this is the wheel spin. So here it's accelerating, but not really getting any grip. And then let's go to frame, I don't know, 25, something like that. And this is where it then starts to get grip. From here on out, we just want to accelerate. Like the guy's just pressing the throttle like crazy to get to 110, something like that, when he gets to the ramp, or 120, because when we go up the ramp, we will lose a little bit of speed again. So let's go to channel, extrapolation and linear extrapolation because then it will just continue. And let us just make our life simpler by going to the manual gearbox and advanced animation and speed of year. Because now when the car is moving, we can see which speed it's moving with. And we want this to be, let's say 120 when we get to here. It's getting faster and faster every time I talk about it because I get more and more excited. So let's around frame 200, I think it would reach this spot. Now it's 80, so it should be a little more. No. We will rotate it. Okay, so there it's reaching almost 130. So I think that's a good speed to have here. And I want it to exactly at this point, I want it to lose some speed. So I'll just break this and then turn it down. So you can see when I do this, it will end up driving 45 or 85 or something like that instead. And then again, let's put a keyframe right here. Oh, wow. Okay, that's some kind of a funky dance it's doing there. So let's not care about this one now, but fix that later. Let us take this point here and just make it probably like this. So it picks up speed again. So I want it to be almost at 100, a little bit more than 100 maybe. So I just imagine how when he gets in the bridge, he loses a little bit of speed, and then he just punches the accelerator, which I guess he already did, to get the last bit of speed before he will take off. So it just reaches 100 before he goes over the jump. Okay, so let's see what we have this far. Okay. That looks a little bit too fast that it's accelerating here. So I guess what we need to do is to put this to 0 and then take this, put it like that. And generally, I don't think a Mini Cooper will accelerate very fast. So I think that's even too much that it's moving if it's doing wheel spin. Let's take this and just scale it to this to the 0. And let's scale this one up, push this one to the side. Let's see. And of course here, right now it's kind of a straight line, which doesn't work so well. But we do want it to accelerate, not keep a constant speed. So let's see, by here it will definitely not have reached 80. That's for sure too fast. Let's bring this one down quite a bit and take this back dot and pull it out. So we have more of an acceleration curve. I imagine, I mean, how many seconds should we give it? This is 4 seconds, 5, 6 seconds. Around here should probably be at 70, 80-ish. It's okay. I guess this would be somewhat realistic. So to do wheel spin right now, it's just accelerating, but you can see how the wheels are still just moving with the floor. So the wheels are not really spinning, but it's just... So the way that you do wheel spin inside launch control is that you have to head into the manual gearbox and then into advanced animation, and then click the extra handles or extra animation handles checkbox. This will give you a lot of extra handles you can play around with, and usually they're hidden to not clutter your viewport. So now let's tap into pose mode and then select these two handles for rotating the wheels. Now let's try to make some wheel spin by just spinning these. So let's make the wheel spin from maybe frame 5. Let's put a keyframe on these to just eye rotation, and then go to frame, let's see, probably 11, 10, 11. And let's spin it a few times like that and press I. And now you should be able to see that they are going normally and then they kind of speed up. It's hard to see here without the motion blur, but when we get the motion blur in there, it will really sell the effect. And let's just go a little bit further, something here, then put another keyframe, and then let's do a little bit of extra spin because I think it'll look cool. So like the tires got a grip, but then they lost the grip for a little second. If we would go real fancy, we would probably not spin the wheels the same way. But for this case, I think it's okay because we only see the car from one side, I imagine. Okay, that's awesome. So now the car is starting, getting some wheel spin. Let's move on from that. Let's get to the jump. So for the jump, we had this issue that the car started going all haywire when it would go over this area here. And the way to debug stuff like this is that you go into the manual gearbox, ground detection, and you toggle the grid visibility. So here you can see the actual ground detection that's calculated. And you can see it has some weird spikes here, and that's why everything's messing up. The reason for that is that there is no ground detection in this slim area. So what I would do is just add in a plane and put it beneath the bridge. Put this one inside ground detection, and now you'll see how the car is still messing up, but less than before, and it's going down at least, not up. And we can also see the ground detection here is probably not high enough quality, so we would just take the detecting resolution, it's default at 1. Let's bring that up to something like 3. And if your computer doesn't work well with that, just keep it lower. So now let's just turn off the grid again, so you can see what we're doing. And now on the car, we will animate the airborne controls. So there is an automatic approach. Maybe you have noticed it inside airborne. This one, automatic airborne detection, it's hidden in here quite well under experimental because it creates a dependency cycle inside Blender, which means you can't really trust that what you see is what you see. It sounds terrible. It doesn't have anything to do with the multiverse, but it's just annoying to animate with. So I would suggest don't use that, but just animate it manually instead. So the way to do that is you pick the last spot before the car is airborne and you click a keyframe, and see here something starts to happen because it's detecting that there's no floor anymore. And then you take the slider and put it to the top and put another keyframe there. So oftentimes it looks a little better if you leave it a few frames to kind of do the translation. Otherwise it can do a little pop. And you would maybe see now, if I could control Blender, that the car is kind of letting go of the ground too early. It's because it's already not sticking to the ground anymore. So let's just take this and pull it down slightly like this to force the car to stay on the road. So you can see now it stays on the road all the way until it doesn't stay on the road anymore. Okay, so the car will fly and then eventually it will hit the ground, and guess what? We have to turn the airborne back off. So we will change that around there. So here it lands, and by, let's say, 3 or 4 frames ahead, we'll put this slider, we'll pull it back down to 0. But let's see how this looks. This looks kind of funky. Okay, so I guess we should probably let it be in airborne mode a little longer. Either like this or like this. Let's animate the car to a stop, because right now it would continue with whatever speed it's at until infinity, I guess. The way you do a stop is you just scale the point to 0, and he will slow down and come to a stop. Probably will be like this. And it definitely does help if you're making sound effects while you're animating the cars, I'm sure. I do it all the time. And when he goes to a stop, we should see a little nice blip at the very end. Let's see if that happens. Okay, now for the fun part, because I think that by now we're ready to just simulate and see how this looks. Let us actually try to just focus on the bridge part of the animation, because this is where a lot of our simulation is going to happen. So let's just focus maybe even just from here. So Control A home or debut, because my keyboard is French and I have no clue why I bought a French keyboard. And until there, Control Fin. So when we set the start and end frame, it will only simulate this portion, so we won't spend time simulating stuff we won't see anyway. Okay, so I think we're ready to simulate. So let's just remove the speedometer. I don't think we need that one anymore. And just pick a preset. I think we'll go with a road car here. I think that this car is a little bit lighter than most cars. But let's try this. Okay, the bake is done, and we can play back the animation. And you can see that this obviously is a little bit over the top. So one thing I know already is that the weight of this car should be a little bit lower. So right now we only have the presets to work with, but if you head into the manual gearbox, you can change or you can enable the physics sliders. So I know that this car should be a little bit lighter or look a little bit lighter in its weight. And then I like to drop the wiggle speed down a little bit so it doesn't become all cartoonish or something like that. So let's try again and see how this looks. Okay, still doesn't look very different, but now is where we should try to play with the physics post effects to see what we can do there. Looking at this, I think we should have more of a hit when it hits the ground. I think it can like dip deeper the body of the car. So let's pull this one up too. Let's try to overshoot it a little bit. Yeah, maybe try another angle to see it better. Okay, here it's definitely punching down a lot, like it's a big impact of the car hitting the ground. But maybe it ends up looking a little cartoonish, so we could dial this down if you wanted to make sure it doesn't clip through in any way. So another thing we can adjust is this tire pressure. So if we put the tire pressure all the way up, you can see how the wheels, they will never stick more through the ground than they already did. So car tires you would often want to push them a little bit through the ground, because the weight of the car would always push the tires a little bit down. That's just a trick that launch control automatically does. So no matter where you are in the animation, it will always stick the tires a little bit through the asphalt. And now when there's pressure applied to the tires, you can decide how much they are being pushed further down. So this should simulate that the tires are being squashed. So if you have a big tire, like from a monster truck or something like that, the tires are very soft, you can turn this way, way down. But for a car like this, of course, you shouldn't turn it much more down than something like this, because then you can see the rim is starting to touch the road, which, I mean, should be kind of the maximum. Actually, now that we're in here, let's just try to add a little more detail to this jump. Maybe we could even take the entire curve. I don't know what will happen here, actually, because I never did this before. And try to twist it a little bit. So let's twist the curve. We should probably add another control point on the curve if we do this. So let's just subdivide a few times and then try to twist the curve a little bit, like the car is going off to the side, because he maybe didn't have a very good launch off the ramp. Let's go back to our little camera we had here, and then we can press apply physics again. That was just override our old physics. I actually think that adds quite a bit to it, because suddenly it looks a little more dangerous that he's actually gonna crash or something like that. I like it. I think I'll open it. Okay, so I've been dialing in the settings, trying a few different things, and I ended up with something like this, which I think looks cool because it has a hard impact. So now that we have that dialed in, let's bring our animation to an end by going to the end here and seeing when does our car go to stop. It stops there. Right now you can see that it says physics outdated, please apply physics again. That's because we extended the animation range. Right now it has physics in here, but then the rest of the animation doesn't have any physics yet. Let us try to simulate the entire thing this time with the beginning and everything. So let's go apply physics. So now we should be able to see that we have a little bit of wheel spinning in the beginning where the car's taking off, going to the ramp, and we should have some nice physics in doing the jump. Let's see if we put a little bit more pitch in here. You can kind of see when it takes off, it bounces a little bit. It goes to the ramp. And if you notice right here, it also does a little bit of wobble when it goes from the flat to the ramp, which is exactly what we wanted. Okay, that drift to the side is definitely not there yet. We have to adjust that more. It looks way too cartoonish right now. But that aside, I think we got something that works, at least a good base for developing more. And that's basically it. That's the animation, how to animate a Mini Cooper or a car jumping the tower bridge inside Blender in roughly 20 minutes. So this here is another file that I was practicing on, and here I think I made this start a little bit better. It's kind of sliding to the side a little bit before it takes off. Let's see when we get to the jump here. Let's see that again. Yeah, here it just lands flat. It doesn't go to the side or anything like that. But it still has a little bit of wobble, like it's hard, landing hard on the road. And then it comes to a stop.